Good morning. Please mute your microphone. I am Chitra Desai. I will be the moderator for this presentation. Most of us want to help those less fortunate than ourselves. We do not volunteer for the most part because it benefits us. We volunteer because it makes a difference. But there are even more benefits to volunteering. Today, we are going to look at volunteerism from a 360-degree view. What is volunteerism? Why do people volunteer? What are the benefits of volunteering? And what can you do to inspire and recruit others to volunteer? Our speaker will be speaking for 20 minutes, wrapping up with a closing statement. If you have questions, please click Q&A tab on the right-hand side of your screen. Then, at the bottom of your screen, click Ask a Question. Please do not post your question on the chat. Susie will respond to your questions as many as time allows. If we have more questions than time allows, please send Susie an email and she will respond to you. Please help me welcome member of Tennessee Valley and Redstone Toastmasters, four-time distinguished Toastmaster, past international director, presidential citation recipient, and person who lives by the motto, if you can't get out of it, get into it. Susie Proctor.
Thank you for such a wonderful introduction, Chitra, and I really have appreciated our interactions to prepare us for this event. And I want to thank all of you for joining us on our session. Before I get started, I want to give you a little bit of personal information. I had COVID from February through June of last year, and I have long COVID symptoms, the biggest one being brain fog. And after mastering Zoom and getting really comfortable to navigate that world, here comes Huva. I'm a little disoriented. If I stop like that, I will come back. So just be patient. Hopefully it won't happen, but I wanted to give you the heads up. I'm okay. We're going to fast focus on the 360-degree view of the topic of volunteerism. So just what is volunteerism? In a simple definition, Merriam-Webster defines a volunteer as a person who expresses a willingness to undertake a service. And a volunteer is offering something that is not required, and it is not an obligation. Do you ever wonder why people volunteer? Well, certainly, we don't volunteer for the pursuit of compensation. You've noticed none of us have got our checks from Toastmasters International, right? We volunteer because we see a glimmer of hope, and we are helping, and what we contribute is beneficial. We might actually believe that by volunteering, we might make a difference, and we might cause things to change for the good of others. The other things to think about volunteering, when you get down to it, it can lead to a route to employment or a chance to try something new that leads to a career change. So in this light, a volunteer is given the opportunity to gain new skills. Some people are able to gain accreditation and therefore improving their employment prospects. But volunteering is also a way of meeting new people, making new friends, identifying a potential mentor, and just getting to know the local environment, whether you are volunteering under a corporate roof or just out in the community. Now, if you scroll down to the bottom of this session, you're going to see a handout. And I encourage you to download it. It's called The Pros and Cons, Volunteerism, the Pros and Cons. My contact information is down at the bottom of it. So if you do have questions or you want to explore the topic of volunteerism further, feel free to email me. But also, now that you have this handout, feel free to remove any of my contact information and put your own on it with your own club's name and make it yours. I am not the owner of this information. I just brought things together to put it in a nice handout for you. What are the benefits of volunteering? Most of the time, when volunteering, we are working alongside like-minded individuals, and hopefully we're working toward a common goal. So doing that, we become connected with the problem to be part of the solution. And in the process, we're freely giving our time to someone or something larger than ourselves. It is proven that volunteering increases self-confidence, self-esteem, and life satisfaction, and it helps combat depression, and it helps you to stay physically and mentally healthful. And as I mentioned earlier, for me personally, it helps to reduce my risk of Alzheimer's and potentially lower risk of dementia, because it's been proven that I may be able to maintain the connections in my brain that often break down in Alzheimer's, but it also, it gets me out of the house, engaging with others and moving physically, which makes me a happier and more productive person. I think many of you have this question, and we can explore your questions further in the Q&A, but what can you do to inspire and recruit others to volunteer? So I'm just going to tell you what I do and what I have done, and I've been successful at it for years. I'm 25 years in Toastmasters. I take notes. No, really, I take notes all the time. I note who shows up and how often. And I also note how engaged they may or may not be. Are they a wallflower like I was, sitting in the back of the room just watching people, not talking? You know, some people need an invitation to volunteer. And if they're new to an environment and they don't know the people, they may not want to intrude on somebody else's territory, and they may not feel that they have enough of the right skills. I have always tried to engage everybody, the wallflower in the corner, to find out what they're about. What drew them to this conference, for example? What have they liked? What didn't they care for? And if given the opportunity, what would their ideal opportunity be? You'd be surprised when you're having a personal one-on-one conversation with people, they open up. And I want you to know, I've done this year after year after year. I have found the best candidate for a district parliamentarian in somebody who likes rules and order, and a district registrar who was a serial I-dotter, T-crosser. Oh, she was beautiful, and she still is the registrar for my home district in Region 1. When I found out all of the diversity in the people who were coming who weren't connected in ways, I put them to work. I appointed a photographer for our district, And that photographer then went crazy and was snapping pictures everywhere. And our website blossomed and our newsletter blossomed, and people caught on to that enthusiasm through photographs of activities at these different events, like speech contests, TLIs, conferences like this. And one guy was a videographer. So he did interviews. One of the first people that he interviewed was past international president Dilip Abhisekera, who came to our district. Everybody wanted pictures with him. We wanted video of him talking to our members. It was wonderful. So finding different things that people like to do and finding a way to bring it in. Somebody needs to turn their mic off. Mute their mic. Thank you. So finding out what the people's individual likes, wants, talents are, and finding a way to bring those into your district program to make it a richer, fuller experience for everybody. Here's a key. It was not rocket science. All it took for me was to ask them personally to take on a specific role, recalling our conversation, letting them know, I could really use this. And I know this job is tailor-made for your particular skills. I would love you to join me and help us, have the best event, whatever. In time, I had amassed an army of people that I could call on. And in time, many of them became district leaders. And in time, 3 of them became international directors after me. Now, here's the interesting part of them. They were fringe members. They were the wallflower in the back of the room. I'd seen them, these 3 different people over time at different events, not participating, but just being a spectator. They became international directors, but they were the fringe. So if you're anything like me, and I know some of you personally, and I think we have a lot in common, you want to be successful in your role. Here's the news. Become the Pied Piper. That's what you need to do. Pay attention to everyone, not just the doers, not just your pals. When we're in the live events, I noticed that a lot of people only socialize with the people that they know really well. When there's a lot of people that are first timers or that aren't so integrated into the Toastmaster family in our district, pay attention to them. Invite people to come alongside of you who can take part on this journey. After all, most of you in this audience are leaders, and leaders lead. So tap into your followers and bring them along with you. Now, doing this will improve your odds of achieving your goals while helping others experience teamwork while accomplishing their goals. What a beautiful thing. And in the process, you help create a culture of raising up emerging leaders. And friends, in my heart of hearts, this is the main thing that holds clubs and districts back, the lack of a potential leadership pool. Now, in the context of club leadership, the same thing applies. But I want you to think for a minute. What is the most meaningful tool in your Toastmasters toolkit that you can use at any time to recruit future volunteers? Think about it for a second. What is the most meaningful tool in your Toastmasters toolkit that you can use any time to recruit future volunteers. It's the Toastmasters promise. That's right, the Toastmasters promise. And I'm here to tell you, we do not use this amazing tool to its best advantage. I'm not on script now. I'm just going to tell you from my heart about my experience with this particular situation. When I signed up for Toastmasters, I read my application. I read the part where it had the Toastmasters promise, but you know, I didn't really know what it really meant to me, right? So I just skimmed over it. 6 months later, when the club was ready to do its club officer elections, a man came up to me, and one of the members came up to me and said, you're gonna be our next club president. What? Yes, our club president. When you joined, you raised your hand and swore to an oath that you would be willing to serve as an officer when called upon. Wow. So I guess, you know, I became the club president. Here's the thing about that. We need to demonstrate being the club officer in our club. We need to show the members what the officers do, how involved they are. When the vice president of education gets out and goes through the pathways program and a member completes a level, the vice president of membership at the next meeting should announce that, and we should recognize that member. When it comes time to put a team together for a campaign committee to produce a slate of officers for the next term, you need to think about, or I recommend that you think about, finding a member in the club that you can ask to shadow you. Now, they're not responsible for the work, but they want you to understand what it takes to be a club president or a club secretary or a club sergeant at arms. And I think you have a lot of potential in leadership, and I'd like you to shadow me and have them come to the club officer trainings with you. And this way you get more exposure to what a club officer does. So many clubs I visited, you wouldn't have an idea what the officers do because they don't spend any time in the meeting highlighting the officers and what they do. It would be kind of cool sometime to hear the president get up and say, I just want to highlight our officers today. I want you to know that John has been our vice president of education and an officer of our club for 8 consecutive officer terms. Okay, 8 officer terms. That's a big commitment. Wanda has served as our VPPR for 3 years because nobody wanted the job. You know, so just letting people know how long these people have served. Now here's the news. When you signed up, you raised your hand, and according to the Toastmasters promise, you agreed to serve as a club officer when called upon to do so. So our current officers will be talking to you about which officer choice is more interesting to you. And I want you to know you can be an officer, but have past officers mentor you along the way. You are not left stranded. That's a strategy to use. It's one strategy to use. But I think the Toastmasters promise needs to be highlighted at every meeting, like the flag salute. I think we just push it to the side. We add a lot of other things into our agendas that don't necessarily get us what we want. So yes, we want everybody to have the opportunity to speak, but if you have a large club, you're not going to achieve that most times. But you really want people to remember why they're a member and what their responsibility to the club is. And once you've become an officer, you have a different view of your club and really leadership overall. At the bottom of the page where the handout is for the pros and cons, if you're a leader, I'd study that pros and cons list, because I can guarantee you when you approach somebody with the offer to serve as a club officer, they're going to come up with any number of these cons, but you're going to have the pros to arm yourself, and you can counter anything that they bring up. And especially that you're committed to their success as an officer and you won't abandon them or let them down. When I joined Toastmasters, I didn't know anything about leadership. I thought it was just a speaking organization. And I'd always been a solo entrepreneur. I didn't work with teams of people. I had my own little businesses and ways of making money and getting through the world. So when I became that club officer, I was like gnashing of teeth. I thought I was going to be a complete failure. But I'll tell you, it was the best thing I ever did. It was the first time that I worked with a group of people as a team, all of us having our own parts, working together to help everybody accomplish our goals. It really raised the bar for me. It took my focus off of speech contests and put it directly on leadership. And I found also that I got to speak more often as a leader in a club, in an area, in a division, in my district, finally in my region, and then the world as international director, than I ever would have had. But I really got so much more out of learning the club officer roles, working in the district leadership team, to see how teams function and to see how other people navigate this same time and space and this responsibility. So I think if you've been an officer, think about your leadership journey, what you came away with it. Why do you stay in with it? Look at you, Ron. You've gone from just a member, now you're club quality director for this coming year. That's a big jump in leadership. And at first we're timid, but I think once people catch that leadership bug, it won't be hard for them to infect other members with that same bug. And I think it'll increase your opportunities to draw people into leadership opportunities. Madam Moderator, at this time, I'd like to welcome the questions.
Thank you, Susie. We have few questions already here. So I'm going to read your first question is, passion and energy makes others want to follow. How do you bring the same enthusiasm to every meeting? I'm going to repeat if you want.
I'm clear on the question, but if other people as the participants, maybe they'd like it repeated.
Passion and energy makes others want to follow. How do you bring the same enthusiasm to every meeting?
It's not hard for me. I'm different though from a lot of people. I'm naturally inquisitive. I'm naturally appreciative of every day. I'm always full of enthusiasm and energy. Well, not always, but most of the time, I'm full of energy and enthusiasm, and it is infectious. when you present yourself in that way, people can't, if you're smiling and you're full of energy and somebody's looking at you, they cannot scowl. You know, it changes people. It changes their reception. So just be the person you want them to be. Model what you want. You know, on the main navigation page on this HUVA for the district conference, there's a tab for photos. And there's a picture of me that people don't recognize because they didn't know me. I was in from Region 1, but there's a picture of me in a suit, and I've got my head back and I'm laughing. And this is the day that I learned that our district earned Distinguished District. And that was the most joyful time for me, not for me though. I saw all of the volunteers to the whole, you know, from Lieutenant Governor of Marketing to District Governor. I saw that group of volunteers who came together to make those years successful, because we didn't just get there from the last year. We worked ourselves up by bringing more people into the opportunities to volunteer. And that joy, people summarized me in 2 words: energy and enthusiasm. People respond to that. But if I were to come on sort of nonchalant and sort of disengaged, and if I was checking my phone, and if I was like looking at other people and whatever, people know that you're not interested. So you have to demonstrate that you're interested. You not only have to demonstrate you're interested, you have to demonstrate that you're proven. You know, I tried this. This is what happened. So I didn't work out the first time. So I tried it again, and this is what I have. So you've got to bring that to the table. If you just got to model what it is that you want. Next question.
Toastmaster is a volunteer organization. It depends on regular members to step up and serve. Sometimes members may have to take several leadership roles due to lack of volunteers in their club. How do we volunteer without being overwhelmed or burned out in this situation or with limited resources? I'm going to repeat. Toastmaster is volunteer organization. It depends on regular members to step up and serve. Sometimes members may have to take several leadership roles due to lack of volunteers in their club. How do we volunteer without being overwhelmed or burned out in this situation or with limited resources?
That is a really good question, and it's multifaceted, so I'll kind of slice and dice it the best way I can. Now, I know many Toastmaster leaders that are in this situation. In fact, we're facing club officer elections now, and the committees are getting together trying to put forth a roster of officers, and they're asking their members, is anybody interested in serving in an officer role? And nobody raises their hand. And what that does is it forces the same people to serve and serve and serve. But that never really was a problem for me because I didn't approach it with a question. I approached it with a presumptive statement. Since we're all Toastmasters and we all promise to serve as a club officer when called upon, this slate of officers have served the last 2 terms. We need to establish a new, so we're going to have a meeting after the meeting, and we want you to stay after, and we can talk to you and answer your questions about the officer roles or something like that. But put the onus back on the club. When we ask, do you want to do this? Nobody's going to raise their hand. There's very few people that want to commit to an officer role. Now, you've served it again and again and again. You do not have to. I know that you are committed, but when you take yourself out of that equation, somebody has to come in and fill it. And amazingly, people will step up. The approach, though, really begins initiating the new member correctly and giving them the idea, planting the seed early on that, yes, we're a club, so we have officers, and at some time, you got to reinforce that message. People need to hear those kinds of messages over and over again. How do you avoid the burnout if you just don't have the people? That's a really good question. What I tried to do is find people to take a little chunk of my job. Somebody took this, somebody took this, somebody took that. All the time I was a district officer, I belonged to 4 clubs. I was an officer in each club. I traveled for work 48 weeks out of the year. Then I ran my campaign and I traveled to all the districts in my region. Yet I still was successful as a club officer in those clubs because I invited people to help me with chunks of the opportunity. So if you think about the people in your club, and all of our clubs are different, just try to approach your members in a different relationship way, saying, hey, we really need to have all of our members participate into this, or we're, make it a personal thing. People respond more to the personal invitation. If you want to talk more about this on a one-on-one, the person who asked the question, email me and we'll set up a Zoom conversation and we'll get more detailed into this. Chitra, do we have another question?
Yes. What is the best way you have used to recruit generations of talent? I do believe each member should find their replacement within the district. Also, I believe in noticing people throughout the district with potential. I'm going to repeat. What is the best ways you have used to recruit generations of talent? I do believe each member should find their replacement within the district. Also, I believe in noticing people throughout the district with potential. It's more like a comment, I guess. Okay.
So this is pretty much what I was talking about when you go to the events, no matter in what format they are. Notice the people who are there who don't comment, who don't engage with other members, but who are there. I've been to many North Alabama TLIs, and I see many people there again and again and again. And I'm not so sure that it's Toastmaster related. It might be purely social. Maybe they want to be in the mix with other Toastmasters. But at some point in time, they need to be engaged and give them some kind of a role. It doesn't have to be an officer role, but just get them in the door. Make them read the mission of Toastmasters International at the opening of the TLI. Have them be a moderator like you are, Chitra. Have them be the introducer at a breakout session, something like that. Get them involved in doing something. So if you start small and they do it well, then they have a win, right? And the win perpetuates their desire maybe to do it again. So I just say, like I said in the beginning, take notes about the people you see who are there all the time, who come to all the different things, who aren't doing something. I've seen people at speech contests who've never judged, who've never been the timer, who've never been the sergeant at arms or the target speaker. Put them to work. Don't wait for them to volunteer. Just say, hey, I know you're a Toastmaster. I need a timer. Just use the presumptive close statement that they're going to do that. And people most often won't argue with that. Keeping account of the people. area governors, division governors, when they visit their clubs, they should be a rich source of information about people that might be good potential leaders in the future, because they experience the club environment, they see how people interact and how they perform in their club. So you could talk to the area and division directors. I keep saying governors, but that's my era. Could start a chat on Facebook page and ask members how to overcome the reluctance of service, and just see what people have to say also, because everybody comes from such a different background. I'm not sure if I answered your question completely, but there again, if you have more questions about that, please email me.
We have last question.
Okay.
Do you have any suggestions for a way to create mini leadership opportunities outside of the meeting roles to give a person a chance to try leading before they commit to a year-long officer commitment? I'm going to repeat. Do you have any suggestions for a way to create mini leadership opportunities outside of the meeting roles to give a person a chance to try leading before they commit to a year-long officer commitment?
Absolutely. So I'm a club officer, and here's a big pie, and I'm responsible for 8 slices that make this pie. I'm pretty much responsible for the results, so I'm going to take this pie slice, but the 7 other slices could be committees, or it could be one person who helps me in my role achieve that one particular goal. For example, if you were vice president of membership, for example, I'm a big believer in personal written thank you cards. So you come and you visit our club, either virtually or in person, and you sign a guest book, and we want to thank you for coming. It's not enough for me to say thank you on the virtual meeting or thank you when they walk out the door. I send them a handwritten thank you note and encourage them to come back. Well, if I'm the vice president of membership, I could give that role to one person. They're taking on a part of that job that gives me time to do a different part of that job. So just think about the different officer roles and how you could break them down to include more people into helping you. That's like job shadowing, which we talked about a little bit earlier, but not the whole
5
job.
minutes.
Thank you, but just a portion of that role. And when people feel like they have contributed to something successful, they're more apt to say yes to the larger opportunity, especially if they have that relationship by this time and they have the a better understanding of how club officers navigate. I think that concludes my response, Chitra.
Thank you. Great speech, great responses, great questions.
Really good questions. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Look forward to seeing you virtually during the rest of the conference. Please shoot me emails if you have questions. I'm responsive. I'd be happy to do private Zoom meetings with you if I can be of help to you. And I'll return control of this meeting back to Chitra.
Thank you, Susie. Like I said, I enjoyed your speech. It was a great speech. Learned so many new ways to recruit people as a volunteer. We have a good crowd and everybody seems enjoying. They have a great questions. You answered them very well. We understood, and this is going to help us in our meeting and our future way to, I guess, conduct the meeting. That, like you said, shadow people. I think that's a great idea. So that way they don't feel like that they can't do it, they will have more confidence. Thanks again for your time volunteering and give us presentation, your knowledge. Thank you, audience. You were the great audience coming up with the great questions.
Yay!
Everybody, hey. So we can move to the next sessions, I guess.
That's right. Thank you, everyone.
The great thing is, like Toastmaster says, we finished in time. Actually, we started late, but we finished in time.
Okay.
Thank you, Susie.
Thank you for joining in, Ron.
No problem.
Thank you, Wanda.
Oh, it was my pleasure. Thank you.
See who else we know. Brenda, Chrislyn, Dwayne, Todd, Kay. Awesome. Nice group.